No one has your experiences, your nuances, your style of teaching, your stories, what you actually want to teach and the way you want to teach it. No one's going to be like that. So you have to carve out your own space and attract your audience. And the beautiful thing is you don't need millions of people to follow you in order for you to be insanely successful online.
Hi everybody, this is Carolina Millan and welcome to a new podcast episode. And today I'm very excited to bring you finally a woman entrepreneur. It's been hard to get female guests on the show, I don't know why. She's a New York Times best-selling author of 2 Weeks Notice and also the host of the podcast Marketing Made Easy. How are you today, Amy Porterfield?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here.
I'm delighted to have you, super excited. I know you're going to add so much value to my audience in Latin America and also around the world. So thank you for making the time today.
Of course.
Yeah, so I love the topic that we're going to cover today because that's also what I love to do. And I really want to get your take on so many things. So let's dive into all the questions I got for you.
Okay.
So I know that at the very beginning of your career, for what I've read and what I've heard, you didn't succeed in your very first course launch. So I want to know what gave you the motivation to try again. I know that you didn't get the results, but you gave it another try, which a lot of people don't do. So what did you learn from that first failure that gave you the impulse to try again and the tweaks that you made?
Yes. So a little bit of backstory. I came from corporate and I had been in corporate for a really long time, my 9-to-5 job. And so when I went out on my own, I started to do social media for small businesses, which meant I had a bunch of clients. But I didn't enjoy it. And I was terrible at setting boundaries in the early days. This is like 14 years ago. And so I had all these clients with crazy expectations of what I could do for them, and I was miserable. So about 1 year in, I thought, I've got to change my business model. This one-on-one work, service-based work, there's only so much money I can make. There's only so much time in the day, and it's just me. So this just isn't working. I thought being an entrepreneur, I'd feel a lot more freedom and flexibility, and I had zero of that. And so I decided to create my first digital course. And I didn't know how to create digital courses, but I looked online and I pieced some things together and I created a digital course thinking I'd make like $100,000 because when I looked online, everyone on social media was making tons of money with their digital products. So I'm like, why not me? So I thought $100,000, that's what I'm going for. I made a whopping $267 in profit. I made a little bit more, but after you took out a few $1,000s in expenses, I made $267. The worst part about that is the product was $297. I didn't even make enough to cover the first one unit. I was devastated. Unfortunately, in an instant, I made it mean I'm not cut out to be a business owner. I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. I'm not good at this. Luckily, I have a really supportive husband, and after about a week of moping around and crying, he said, you've got to stop this. We need to push you back out there. You've got to try again. Now, I could have easily groveled back for my 9-to-5 job. I hadn't been gone that long. I did a really great job where I was working. I could have maybe gotten that job back, but instead I thought, I've got to try this again. So to answer your question, the reason I decided to go back at it, try again, and not give up is because I was really clear on what I wanted. My why for starting my own business was that I didn't want a boss. I didn't want to be told what to do, when to do it, or how to do it. I wanted to build my own business and be as creative as I wanted and bust through the glass ceiling and make a lot of money. And I knew I wouldn't get that in my 9-to-5 job, which is why I wrote the book 2 Weeks Notice to help other people leave their job and start their own businesses. And so I thought, I can't go back to that. I got to figure this out. So I went back to the drawing board, figured out what I did wrong, which was I didn't have an email list, so I didn't have anyone to market to. And I created a product around something that I wasn't proficient in. I always say you need a 10% edge before you start your digital course, which means you've gotten results for yourself or for somebody else, and you're willing to teach how you got those results. Well, in my first digital course, I was teaching authors how to launch their book using social media. I knew social media well. I had never authored or promoted a book. And so I shouldn't have been teaching that. So I didn't have a 10% edge. So that was another reason I had no confidence when I sold it. So anyway, I went back to the drawing board, created a course around something I was an expert in, social media in general, and that one started to take off. And so I started to say, okay, I have some traction here. I'm going to keep doing this.
I love that, especially what you mentioned about validating the idea, because, but here's what I want to ask you as well, because sometimes some of my clients are like, hey, I found a lot of demand, or I guess competition, depends on how you want to look at it. And sometimes that makes people think that maybe it's saturated, or maybe too many people are teaching the same thing I'm teaching. So,
so
how do you differentiate yourself?
This comes up a lot. And so the idea of it's already been done before, and it's being done by some really big names who have big audiences, there's not enough space for me. That's a lack mentality. And as an entrepreneur, you cannot have a lack mentality. You have to believe that there is enough room for everyone, including you. When I first came on the scene 14 years ago, social media managers were everywhere. Everyone, right? Everyone and their mother was a social media manager. They just could declare they were. Now they're teaching it, whether they're good at it or not. And that's when I started to teach social media. And at the time, Mari Smith, who is still incredibly popular, she cornered Facebook marketing. She had it. Like, she had the bulk of people that were interested in Facebook marketing knew who she was. Still, I came on the scene. I actually learned from her initially and then started my own business. And there was still enough room for me, even though there was a superstar out there doing what I wanted to do. No one could teach quite like you. No one has your experiences, your nuances, your style of teaching, your stories, what you actually want to teach and the way you want to teach it. No one's going to be like that. So you have to carve out your own space and attract your audience. And the beautiful thing is you don't need millions of people to follow you in order for you to be insanely successful online. So it's a lack mentality that you want to stay away from and start believing there's enough room for me.
Now, for the people who are listening who are a little more advanced, what is your advice to scale? Let's say you're already hit the 5-figure mark and you're stuck there. Which, by the way, I can relate to that because I've had 6-figure months and then I go back to the 5-figure and then I'm like, how do I scale this? So what's your advice for people to scale after they reach a certain level and they're like, okay, how do I break the ceiling? I don't know what the expression is.
Yeah, no, that's great. How do I go to the next level here?
Yes.
So the first thing is that I recently have entered into a phase of wanting to scale my business to the next level. And I hired a consultant actually because I wanted to kind of look at holistically everything I had going on in my business. And I was starting a coaching component of my business, one-on-one coaching. I wasn't going to do the coaching, but I had coaches already lined up. I had 2 salespeople already lined up. I had the whole sales mechanism built out. I was 1 week away from launching a brand new coaching program. And I had brought in a consultant about 2 months ago that's been auditing my entire business. And he came to me a week before I launched it and said, do not launch that coaching program. You have not gotten enough squeeze or enough juice out of the squeeze of what you're already doing in your business. So what I'm doing in my business, I have 2 digital courses and 1 membership. So that's all I have, 2 digital courses and 1 membership. And he looked at the success I was having with my automated digital course. Then I have a live one that I live launch, and then the membership. And he said, you can do so much more. And his advice, which spoke to me deeply because I want a simple business. I don't want a lot of spinning plates in the air. I created the business to have more freedom. So the more I add to the business, the less freedom I have. And so I listened to him and I thought, wait a second, you are right. Now we went over numbers and details and specifics, but after all the research, I thought, this man is absolutely right. We decided not to launch the coaching program, which was very, very hard for me to do. I had to let go of people I just hired. We compensated them, but it was a bad, bad feeling. And I was embarrassed that I wasn't going to move forward with the coaching. However, I think a really good leader makes those hard decisions and stands behind them and leads forward. And I knew I had to do that. So now, to answer your question, to scale our business, we're doubling down on what's already working. So for instance, we have a digital course that's on Evergreen. So every day you can buy the course and there's funnels involved and ads are running to it and all of that. And we're looking at ways to streamline it to double it. We want to double the revenue with my Evergreen in the next 6 months. So that means that we have to figure out new strategic ways to market it. That means we might bring on some affiliates to help us sell it. It means that we will likely try some new strategies that I've never tried before on the sales page or on like an upsell after they buy it, ways to make more revenue with what's already working in my business. And those listening that are more advanced, there's obviously things working in your business. And so what can you do to double down on what's already working? And maybe you need to hire an expert to give you some advice. Maybe you need to take a digital course to learn something new. Like, let me give you an example.
Yep.
When we wanted to make more revenue with my live launch, my project manager took a $7,000 training about how to create paid boot camps. So my friends of wealthy course creators, they did this training on how to do paid boot camps. My project manager took the course, brought it back to my company, and we implemented it. And we skyrocketed our sales versus the year before because this one strategy we were willing to learn and apply. I'm 14 years in. I know a lot about how to launch, but I'm still totally open to learning and trying new things. So that's what I mean about investing some money to learn something and then applying it to what you're already doing. To me, that's the best way to scale.
My next question is, as you know, we are in this era where AI, artificial intelligence, is becoming a part of our everyday life. And I know I'm using it, so I want to know how you are using it in your business, when it comes to your daily tasks or planning a launch or whatever. How are you using AI? And how do you think it's shaping the future of course creation?
I love this question. I really do think AI is incredibly important and we all should be using it, even if we're just dabbling with it now to just kind of figure it out. Every department in my company uses it and I encourage it. I hate to say this because I don't like FOMO, fear of missing out, but I do think we're going to be left behind if we don't start to embrace it and also find ways that our students can use it. So I have a community department and they use AI to help them name different groups in our community. They use AI to come up with new ideas to boost engagement in the community. My customer support uses AI to create guided responses for different challenges people are having with my courses or in my community, so they don't have to look at a blank screen. I think that's what I love about AI. I don't think it spits out the most eloquent, interesting content, but it allows you to not have to stare at a blank screen and start from scratch. And one thing I learned from my Tony Robbins days is the more you start from scratch, the more you reinvent the wheel and start from zero, the slower you'll be at building a business. So this is going to help us fast track. Now, for digital courses specifically, I want you to look at AI as your digital course creation assistant. It's not your guide, it's not your expert, it's your assistant. So let's say you learn from me of the whole framework and model to create and launch a course, and I give you each step along the way. What I do in my course is, let's say if I show you how to outline, fully flesh out a digital course so you know all the content you're creating, I give my students AI prompts to put into ChatGPT to say, okay, this is what you say to get some ideas of how to flesh out the content in your course. And so if you start to use AI as your assistant, but feed it very personal information so it's not spitting out generic stuff for you to include in your course, it could be incredible. But at the end of the day, people buy from those who have heart, integrity, there's grittiness and stories and examples in their content. You don't get that through AI. So you're going to have to use it as an assistant, but it's not your end all be all.
I love your take on that because I see other people who are telling you to create a course where you don't even show up on the screen, or where you just, you use AI to write the scripts and then another AI to appear in the videos, and
if you want to be a flash in the pan and you want to make a bunch of money really quickly and then literally fizzle out, that might be the way to do it. But if you're here for the long haul and you want to build a real, true business with heart, that I'm very much against just using whatever AI spits out.
I'm 100% with you. I think we
Yeah.
can use it in our favor to save time,
Yes.
and it can be super helpful, but
Very.
yeah, I still want to be in front of the camera and do the talking.
Well, you're really good in front of a camera and you really shine. So I'm so glad that you like to do that.
Thank you, thank you. Now, I know we're running out of time, so a couple last questions. So for anybody who is struggling right now to sell their course, you know, maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they're trying to be everywhere at once. Like, what's your advice for somebody who is not getting the results they want? Maybe they have a great idea or they already have the product. What's your advice to get that up and running if you're struggling?
If you're struggling to sell your course, it's likely has nothing to do with your course. So let's take off the table, this is not the right course, or I'm not a good teacher, or anything like that. It's typically two things. Number one, your audience. You don't have a big enough audience. And even if you do have a few hundred people or 1,000 on your email list, somehow or another, they're not engaged with you. Focus on engaging with your audience, and social media is not enough. You've got to get these people on your email list and nurturing them every single week with valuable content. That's why we talked about earlier, creating original content will set you up as the go-to expert and give you that know, like, and trust factor that you need to sell online. So look at your content creation, and are you growing your list, and do you have a viable audience? That's usually the number one reason you're not selling more courses. And then number two is your messaging. Are you hitting the pain points or desires? When you talk about it, are you talking about the modules, the PDFs, the lessons, the trainings, or are you talking about what this will do for you, how your life will change, how your job will change, or how it will transform a relationship, the end game, the future pacing? Create a beautiful picture of what's possible when they go through your course. Change that messaging. That changes everything in the selling game.
I love that. And talking about future pacing, where do you see the future or the near future, maybe the next 5 years of the online education space? Do you see more opportunity? Where do you see it going?
I mean, I know I'm biased because this is the world I live in, but I see it only getting better, more sophisticated, more efficient. With the onset of AI, I'm so excited to help my students get to the end of my course and apply it more quickly. So I see people having more confidence in actually getting their content out there and teaching in a beautiful way. So right now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I see that only exploding over the next 5 years.
I believe so too. And I recently interviewed Dean Graziosi, and he also said, oh, it's going to keep growing. It's probably going to reach $1 trillion a year.
Absolutely. I totally back that.
Yeah, me too.